Welcome to the 1457 podcast. I'm Stevie, and this is a podcast from Scotland Where Golf Began, a dynamic digital platform inspiring golfers near and far with our photography, wonderful short films, insightful stories, and now fascinating podcasts. We want to inspire golfers from all around the world to visit our Scottish shores. So I'm your resident golf nut, your functioning golf addict, and my co-pilots this week are Malcolm Duck. Good evening, Malcolm.
Good evening, Stevie.
Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
In a couple of words, fun, golf, food, top drink, cigars, creating memories for an old Royal Marine at Ducks Inn on Scotland's Golf Coast, East Lothian, with the best microclimate in the world.
Very good. And of course, Dave Kerr. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Stevie. Good evening.
And do you want to do the same for us?
I own a golf travel company based in Edinburgh called Morton Golf. We won the Scottish Inbound Golf Tour Operator of the Year Award in 2020 at the World Golf Awards. And we love to bring tourists from all over the world to play golf on Scotland's amazing golf courses. And meet their amazing hoteliers and restaurateurs like Malcolm Duck.
I love you, Dave.
And many, many others that are better.
What are the
Do you better deals? Every time you mention this, I always like to ask you a question about the World Golf Awards, Dave. Right. So in the 2020 World Golf Awards, were they held virtually?
I'm sad to say that they were, Stevie. We were supposed to be going to Dubai. I had a nice round of golf booked at Dubai Creek, but it all fell through, sadly.
That COVID getting us again and again. This week, we are talking about modern courses in Scotland. I think we managed to play most of the modern courses in Scotland. However, one interesting thing that we have been discussing before we got going is, how do you define a modern course? So, Dave, I'm going to let you open the proceedings with some proposals around, I suppose there's two aspects to it. There's like a year element, but also design stylistic element.
Because I'm such a young person compared to you two, at least, I would assume that any golf course that was opened after I was born is clearly a modern golf course, right? So there's the age one straight away. But it's an interesting debate about modern techniques used to create golf courses. So, you think of some of our wonderful ancient links in Scotland, like so your Prestwicks and your old courses, where the land was the land, and we said, look, that's a nice flat spot over there, so let's call that a green site, and some rolling farmland over there, we'll call that a fairway, and we'll crack on from there. Whereas now, with modern techniques, we can move earth, millions of tons, hundreds of millions of tons of earth. And is that what makes a modern golf course? Is that you can sculpt something out of nothing? It'll start with a field and end up with a dunescape. Is that what we define as a modern course?
Malcolm, you got thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, part of the running theme is, of course, here in East Lothian, we might define the old course as a modern course because we've been around such a long time. But that's just coming back on one of the things we've probably run through here, where the golf started. And we are talking about where Scotland Where Golf Began. I think a lot of it, Dave's right. It is, it's also, you could say, is the architects. And a guy like Doak, say take Renaissance and Dumbarnie, a guy like Doak at Renaissance doesn't move earth. So he's really looking at Muirfield, the old course, North Berwick, and designing that kind of way where it's not walking and all the rest. And Dumbarnie, another great new course, a great reputation. You look across the other side away from the thing and you see where for the golf course and you see the kind of field. So it's built to make it better, make it worse. Is it how old? Is it not how old? So I think obviously age must come into it, but also stylization and kind of design type and what's the concept. The days of old when you teed up to club lengths from the pin probably wouldn't be allowed now with health and safety. So modern courses probably can't replicate that. Some courses, Dundonald and Renaissance, maybe get a hard time from the tour or something for slightly undulating greens. Doak would say the last defence is the green. But are they any more undulating than North Berwick or Prestwick or even the old course? Some of those old course greens are huge, but some of the areas, they are really big swales and undulations. Yeah. So I think it's, I don't know what the gaps are, but I would have thought there'd been more golf courses designed in the last 20, 35 years than there were sort of 60 years before that. And is that because, golf in Scotland's got more popular through tourism and all the rest of it? So we need more places to play or more high-end places to play, which obviously Scotland Where Golf Began, we were trying to tell people about the new places, but also the old places, the courses have been there and nobody knows about. So go play them as well as the new ones. So it's a kind of tough call. It's got to be age. I remember playing Kingsbarns for the first time and I really didn't enjoy it. And then talking to Martin Hawtrey, who stayed quite a lot when he was doing the modifications to Muirfield. So a lot of modifications for Muirfield, does that make it a new course? No, it's evolved. It just keeps evolving. Old, but it keeps evolving. And he just about to go up and do Trump Aberdeen. He said, please don't play it for 5 or 6 years because you play new courses, you hit the ball in year 2, the ground breaks because it's not knitted in, and you go away with this memory that it's not a great golf.
Yeah, well, interestingly, like your course, Renaissance, I would say I'd had exactly that experience. So I maybe played Renaissance too early, and I walked away with being sort of probably disappointed with it. But then I played the second time I played it with you, and it was like a different golf course. The turf had knitted in. It just felt more natural, even though it was an artificial, even as a man-made thing, it just felt more natural. The one course I would like to play, and I've not played yet, is Dumbarton.
Great course.
Which, I mean, I've not heard a bad report about it yet. For example, does that suffer from that kind of thing? Where you think that it's not knitted in yet? Or do you think that it's slightly beyond that?
I think any course that's new just takes time for the ground to net. I mean, going back to Kingsbarns, I love Kingsbarns now. Fantastic golf course. What's your view on that, Dave?
Dumbarton's an interesting one. I think I was lucky enough to be invited up with some other tour operators to play it before it officially opened. So that would have been October 19, I think we went and played it. And it was very much, there was areas where there was very little or no growth basically around the tees and what have you. But some of the fairways were decently well bedded in even at that point. And I think since then I've maybe played it 5 or 6 more times. And each time I play, I enjoy it more and more. I see more and more. I don't know if it's the way that they're looking after the turf, but it is maturing faster than I think I've seen golf courses in the past mature. Maybe the new techniques that they've got for looking after the turf. It's definitely one that's moving faster than one would reasonably expect, I think.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember I was down at Turnberry with old David Hush. Who's the great pro at North Berwick, succeeded by his son Martin. Archerfield had not long opened and they were raving about their greens. And David just giggled. I said, what's that giggle for, David? He said, 5 or 6 years, they're all happy about the greens, fantastic, but they don't understand nature's boiling underneath, waiting to come back. And then, from years kind of 5, 6 to 20, as nature comes back and hits it, then you have the problems. Archerfield suffered from that. Their greens in great nick now. I mean, all these courses begin to get that. So again, this length of time, Lough Ness in East Lothian is renowned for its greens, but I mean, they don't cut to less than 5 millimeters because he feels if you cut below that, then he cuts to 5 and then rolls. If you cut below that, then your density of the grass it's easier for other grasses to get in. So, it's an interesting dynamic how the golf course progresses. But I think all the great courses have progressed.
I think also there's a sort of, one of the things I think about Archfield, because I've luckily played that. So the first time I played that would be probably 2010. When did the Archfield open? Is that round about that time?
2004.
4, right. And then, so the first time I played that in 2010, and I would agree with you, I think it was good, but it still had that new feel. But then I've played that quite regularly over the last 10 years, and I think it's just got better and better and better. And also I think it's what it is brilliant at is giving you a brilliant experience. Mm-hmm. From a golfing perspective. So turning up, clubhouse is brilliant. You get looked after. Everyone's lovely. The practice facilities are amazing. And I think that obviously makes a big difference as well. Renaissance, the first time we went, we had an amazing experience, but the golf course not necessarily wasn't quite there. But then the next time you go and you get all of that, it's such a massive thing.
The Scottish Open going back for the 4th time, and Padraig Harrington's been come to help. And Padraig wasn't brought in because he was Ryder Cup captain. Two of the Savadi brothers were in the bubble in the Scottish Open at Renaissance, and then down at Wentworth. And both times Padraig came 3 or 4 times to ask questions. So at Wentworth, they said, "Well, do you want to be involved?" And he said yes. But actually, I think some of the things he was suggesting maybe now get backed off. Done it with Tom not that long ago. But one thing Padraig said that the players are getting to understand it now. So having played it more often, they're beginning to understand it and enjoy it more. So I think that is a thing. I mean, the old course, Dave, going back, if first time you played the old course, you maybe not get it, but after you've played it 2 or 3 times, by goodness, you get it. What a golf course!
I think there's definitely something there about the first time you play a golf course, you see it in a certain way. And then I think maybe even like times 2 to 5 or 6, you see it in a different light, and maybe you don't appreciate some of the subtleties and the complexities of something. And then once you get to know a golf course and you've played it, for me, maybe half a dozen times or more, then you really get an appreciation of the place. That's the case for me when it comes to Renaissance. It's the case for me when it comes to Castle Stuart, probably, the PJ, Gleneagles as well, where the first time you play it, I'm like, this is not for me. This is for pros. This is not built for a kind of hacker like me. But once you get to know it and understand it and know where you put the ball and where you can't put the ball, where you can have a good lash and where you need to not have a good lash off the tee, then you learn how to play the golf course. And I think there are some golf courses that are more accessible than others. I think Kingsbarns is a good example of that for me. It's quite an accessible golf course. I think you can turn up there, get a decent caddy or a 4-caddy, get the yardage book out in front of you, and you'll have an amazing time there. I think it gets better as you play it more often, but it's accessible in that you can play it the first time and enjoy yourself. Whereas one that is different for me is the Trump International course in Aberdeen. That's a tough golf course, and you need to know where you're going and where you're putting the ball and where you need to just lay it up off the tee. So that's one where, it's not as accessible. It's enjoyable, but you need to work at it. You need to kind of gain an insight and an experience there, and then you can really start relaxing and enjoy yourself.
I suppose that's one thing about modern golf courses as well. You'll probably see more evolution of the course in the early years because, they're finding out it's just open. They put something here, and here. And I mean, you see that at Renaissance, but look at Craigielaw. Craigielaw down here. Craigielaw's held the Scottish Seniors Open two times, whatever. And, Craigielaw is, I think it's a great golf course. I would have said it's, love-hate. It's interesting because it looks linksy right beside Kilspindie, which is pure links. But I would argue Craigielaw is struggling to be links because it's built on earth. But again, was it built too tough for what they were trying to do? Remember, Archiefield and Renaissance weren't here, so people were struggling to get onto memberships and courses. So, I think Craigielaw, again, going back to their accommodation, Derek, I'm being nice to you here. I shouldn't be too much good competition. But, Craigielaw's fantastic. The accommodation's there. They've got the golf course. They've got the par 3 course. They've got the driving range. They've got good pros. They're incredibly friendly. What's not to like?
But I think with the Kingsbarns is another thing where it is the whole experience as well, because you've pointed out, Dave, it's that accessibility, which I totally agree with, but also the situation. You've got those views, those iconic views, but then you've also got that clubhouse and the way you're looked after and the practice ground, and just all of those things add together to make it that great experience. There is an argument that it's pretty expensive. However, it's also, you can't go on it because it's so busy. So, people are willing to pay the money to play the game.
Well, that's also a new thing about some of the newer courses, is they're not the old-fashioned membership club. Craigielaw is and isn't. It's a membership club, but it's proprietary club, so the members don't own it. There's a captain. Dave, you remember, you'll say more about that, but they allow visitor play, so it's more accessible. And actually, just to plug some of the videos, if you go to Scotland Where Golf Began website and look at Scotsman's Less Obvious, by Andy Sullivan, and look at the video on Craigielaw he did there. I think it's number 2 or 3. Only when I watched that back, the views just hit me, because I walk down all the time. Maybe I'd take it for granted, but the views are just stunning.
That's not one I've played, so I look forward to both of you taking me on there.
Absolutely.
Thinking about it from my perspective, so Dundonald is one that I've been involved with from quite early on. I was a member probably first time, maybe 2012. So I've been there for a while, and I've seen that evolution. And obviously there's been things going on in the background of ownership and investment, and it's going up and down. One of the beauties of that golf course, and one of the things that a lot of people I know like about it, is that you will play on proper greens all year round. So there was a point in its early years where I would say it was probably busier over the winter than it was over the summer, because the whole of that area went down there to play because they knew it wasn't expensive and it had full greens on. And that, that's continued. And now with the investment they got in it, it's phenomenal. As a member, that I'm not a member anymore, I'm still going to carry on playing it afterwards, as long as they give us a good deal. I hope you're listening to this. But the clubhouse, even just the clubhouse opening in the last couple of weeks, what a facility that is.
Great feedback.
Yeah, what a facility that is for, and I'm not saying this in a negative sense, what a facility that is for the level of golf course. The facility is unbelievable, like the clubhouse. And, I've not had first-hand experience of the lodges yet, although my son is determined to have a lads weekend down there, even though he's 10. But I'm sure we can.
Oh, that's why he's taking Dad.
It's phenomenal. And then obviously the work they've done in the course. And interestingly, and I think this is an interesting thing, and Trump's investment has been probably relevant to this, is the stuff they invested in wasn't necessarily all about the playability of it or about the bunkers or so on. It was about the cosmetic detail of the paths between the tees and the previous greens and all of those things that when you look at Trump Aberdeen and Trump Turnberry, it's just unbelievable. So it's like, I suppose it's an interesting question. Has that, and it's like, not that I'm saying I'm an advocate for Trump himself, but those golf courses, both of them are phenomenal. And the things that they've done with those kind of things have maybe lifted the standard you would expect for a new course in Scotland. What do you think about that, Malcolm?
Well, I'm just thinking, does that mean Trump Turnberry counts as a new course? Because I think every single hole has had a modification or a change. So does that now come in the last few years? Yeah, I mean, great golf courses are great golf courses, irrespective of who owns them. I mean, I think
absolutely.
you do have to take stances on some things occasionally, but I mean, hopefully.
Yeah, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is, forget that. What I'm saying is that the investment in it and an investment in
fantastic
detail of that.
Yeah.
And it's talking about those grass on the pass that looks like artificial grass, which is not artificial grass.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's, Dundonald has that. So that's like something that's like, well, let's lift the quality on the basis of that.
I think there's a couple of things there. One is about, I remember I had a conversation when I was down south in the summer. I played at Lytham in St Anne's one day, which is obviously not a Scottish modern golf course, so I won't dwell on it too much. But I'm told that the greenkeepers, the course managers, there are specific breeds of grass which they have found that work particularly well on pathways around a golf course.
Yeah,
and that information, because of investment, as you say, Stevie, because of investment, that information is now known and it is shared amongst the course managers. So that's how this kind of stuff drives forward. I think the interesting one for me about the Ailsa course, a new course or an old course, that's an interesting debate to have. But that meticulous level of detail and that interest in creating that amazing holistic experience at Turnberry has led to the second course there, which was the Kintyre, is now King Robert the Bruce, become an absolutely amazing golf course. It has just lifted the standard of that golf course so that it's right up there with Ailsa, in terms of the experience and the look and the feel and the care that's lavished on the golf course. You take that golf course and put it somewhere else, and it's the best golf course in the area. It just so happens to be next to one of the best, championship links golf courses.
What's interesting about that is I have a long history with Turnberry. I was a junior member. My granddad was a former captain. So, and the basis of what makes the Robert the Bruce. So, when it was the Kintyre, it started as the Arran, and then it became the Kintyre, and then it became the Robert the Bruce. But what is interesting is that there's a number of holes that were part of the Arran course originally are still now part of the Robert Bruce, which you're talking about. So that is probably, we're now looking at one of the first ever hybrid courses in Scotland, if you think about it. Because if you think about it, for example, the second on the Robert Bruce, which used to be the third on the Arran, is the same hole. It's probably always been. I'm sure there's some adjustment in, maybe sort of cosmetic type things, maybe some slight green things, but essentially it's the same par three. And I would say the fourth even more so, whilst you might grow some marram grass around the bunkers, it's the same hole it was 35 years ago or 40 years ago when I first ever played it. So I think that is an interesting point, that it's added some new stuff, which is unbelievable, that whole sort of outside the sea. But then it's also keeping some stuff that's brilliant as well.
By the way, jump to same designer, the new boy on the block, Fife, the Castle course, and across it for David McClay Kidd. So he's down at
Mac Dunes.
Mac Dunes. What do we think of those two?
But interestingly, I played both of them, but I haven't played the Castle course since they changed the greens, because they've changed the greens, haven't they?
Yeah.
So they had a forced evolution, didn't they? Because they took that North Berwick. What's the hole at North Berwick that's got the absolutely crazy green? Is it the 16th? With the big, that goes like
16th.
Yeah. On the Castle course, I felt that they tried too much originally to make a lot of greens like that. And I get the inspiration, but it was too much. But it strikes me that I've not played it since, but my understanding is since they've kind of leveled out the greens a bit. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think one of the things with Tom Doak, one of his things across here, a lot of guys were saying that the Mac Dunes, if you're going to have tough greens, you need to have softer landing areas for your drives. So to toughen the landing area for you off the tee, and then have a tough green, it just becomes very, very difficult. So you're trying to create a championship course, it's a difficult golf course to play. You're trying to make something playable for normal golfers at which you can have championships at. I mean, again, Renaissance, Dundonald, going back to there with the greens, both Renaissance and Dundonald, when both the men's Scottish Tour and the ladies' Scottish Tour were concerned about pin placements because they need this flat area round about the pin to get a pin placement. I just don't get that personally. And in conversation with a lot of people, Andrew Coulthard will say the toughest putt for a pro is a straight putt. Tom Doak will say some of the banks he's got, the backstops, you hit the ball a bit too hard, it'll stop. If you go over the bank far too hard, you got the hard putt coming back down. You look at Prestwick, you look at North Berwick, look at the swales and the oscillations. So you would never get pin positions there. The old course, much bigger greens, but still quite big swales. So, I mean, we've got a kind of saying at Renaissance to get easy pin positions, you've got to qualify for the Scottish Open. But I think are in many danger of that. But I know certainly the girls, I wasn't through at the men's at Dundonald, but the girls were there, and I went round with Rebecca Artist or Flood before she got married, who won it. And, they enjoyed the course, really enjoyed the course. And what a closing hole at Dundonald. That par 5 is a finishing hole. Are you going to win? Are you going to lose? Are you going to take that second shot on to get to green and 2? Or are you going
But what's great about the layup is that, I mean, I suppose this is thinking more in an amateur sense, but, you're even laying up, you bring those 3 bunkers in the sort of fairway nearer the green into play. And the problem is, if you get anywhere in one of them, your layup's killed. You're dead. You cannot go for it because of the bird. It's a great hole. And I mean, Dundonald now, it's a phenomenal golf course. It's playable. It's tough. It's durable because you can play all year round. I think that's probably how you'd want to define it. I mean, I would think that obviously once the European Tour and the PGA Tour get fed up of Renaissance, that's where they'll be going next, won't it? I mean, back to Dundonald, back to the spiritual home, mate,
I think Malcolm's hit on a really interesting point there, but about, is it possible to design a golf course that works for your 16 handicap or your average golfer? The average handicap of a golfer in 2021 is still 16, and yet is playable and enjoyable for a pro. And the unique marriage of those two, that's where the excellent golf courses are. Right. I think that's where we're just so fortunate in Scotland, aren't we? Because we do have Dundonalds. Kyle Phillips at Dundonald, Kyle Phillips at Kingsbarns, Tom Doak at Renaissance, Castle Stewart, obviously Gil Hansa and Mark Parsonen up there. We're just so fortunate that these modern golf courses created in the last 20 odd years, we've just got easily a dozen of them. Amazing golf courses that manage to really good for a championship links, but also massively fun for the amateur golfer.
But you see, again, going back to Renaissance, obviously know it pretty well, and I know Tom Doak very well and all the rest. But we've just made some changes to there, and another day I can run through them. New bunker on the first, significantly roughening of the area on the second, new bunker in the fourth. I said to Tom, is this going to affect the club golfers? He said, no, not really. Maybe some collateral damage. Every damn hole's collateral damage. But talking to the Sky Boys when they're staying here, Radar said, the reason they left Carnoustie is it was so hard at the Scottish Open before you went to the Open, you were knackered. So you don't really want that.
Yeah, no, they don't.
So, whatever you do to Renaissance, much as Jerry might not like it, because owners don't want high scores, makes it look bad, you can set a golf course up how you want to set it up. So it will always be set up probably for a sort of -20 delivery. Then the weather obviously has an effect. So however you design it, and, I think Renaissance's changes are really good, but it's made it a lot harder. But that leads on to one of the great caddies in Scotland, Todd Jerome, who's architect stuff, and Todd caddies in East Lothian all over the place. He was kind of saying, yeah, but the new one on the first, you can't hit driver off the tee. And I said, well, why do you have to hit driver off the tee? Well, you should be able to, shouldn't you? And I said, well, can't you anywhere? Well, no. I said, well, maybe let's go Craigielaw, you can't. Kilspindie, you can't. Lough Ness, you can't. Gullen 1, you can't. Renaissance, you can't. North Berwick, you can't. So, is it all about smashing driver off the tee? Because, some golf architects will set golf courses up that way, and some will make them really tough golf courses. So, should it be about thinking? Is it all about handicap? Should it all be about under par for the pro golfer? If I have to lay up on Renaissance in the first because new bunker's on the right, slightly ahead of the other one for those it. If I lay up, I've got a 200-yard shot to the green. Now, my forward tee position made me get me further on, but I've still got 200 yards to the green, which ain't short.
I think that's a really good point, though, because then it's like, as I think Dave, you've alluded to earlier, it's like, who's it for? I mean, who is it? Who is this for? Because it's a bit like the equipment argument, isn't it? Where they're basically, obviously, people are saying, "Oh, the ball goes too far," and blah 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 blah. And there's possibly a reasonable argument to say that's the case for the top 0.03% of the game, whereas for the rest of the game, the people who play it, it doesn't go too far. So from a golf course perspective, is it the same thing? Whilst you want to have a course that you can host these championships, which a lot of the time, I think it's easier now with modern facilities because generally they're built on bigger bits of land. But then, you look at the old course and the things that they've been trying to do to make that competitive and continue to make that competitive because it's the home of golf. And whilst, don't get me wrong, if the wind blows and they actually make the greens pretty fast, then it's problematic. However, the reality is from a distance perspective, and if the wind doesn't blow, it's probably too easy. But then again, that's not, if that's the home of golf, it's not about trying to focus on the best players in the world, is it? It's about making it playable. So it is an interesting debate. Who is it for? And then if we bring it around to Scotland's modern courses, who are they for?
Well, it's interesting if you look at the pro tournaments that have happened in the last 10 years. Where have they been? The Open obviously is in the old courses, but you've got a new tournament, European Tour tournament at the at Fairmont. So 2 new courses there. The Scottish Seniors was at Craigielaw. The Scottish Open's been at Castle Stuart, Renaissance, and Dundonald. The Ladies Scottish has been at Dundonald and Archerfield and Dumbarnie. And the match play, there was a match play, a one-off year. No, was it the Paul Lawrie match play? Archerfield. Yeah. So not a lot of these, unless it's been the Open or when the Women's Open's coming to Muirfield, have been on the older courses. Why is that? Is that because more space for TV setup, because they're better courses, just spreading them around, or because they're not member-owned courses? So,
I was going to say that I think the member factor is probably a big factor in that, isn't it?
Well, Scottish Open at Gillen was Gullum. I never know. There's a Gill Lane.
Malcolm, if there's anyone we would expect to know the right answer to this, it would be you.
So if people talk about Gillen, I call it Gillen. They talk about Gillen, I call it Gillen, to speak a duck. There is a Gill Lane, and we should do something one day about the other stuff. But actually, Muirfield, interestingly, was a run out for the stables. It was actually a horse place before. And I think the third in Gullen one's called the racetrack. So there's another thing, about all the race courses around Scottish golf courses. You can think of quite a few off the top of your head. But it's interesting, as I say, that these championships, significant championships, have gone to modern golf courses.
I have to say my analysis would be slightly more complex than about the playability and the space. And there's politics and money involved in it as well, isn't there? I do agree with that to be fair, and you've got to give credit to Aberdeen Asset.
Absolutely,
Aberdeen, because they're the ones that threw the money at it. But
and Martin Gilbert in particular.
Martin Gilbert took it to the modern courses, didn't he? Mm-hmm. So Castle Stuart, and then Dundonald, and then Renaissance. Mm-hmm. And, he did go to Gullen a couple of times.
Difficulty in Gullen is actually the setup in the village. It just takes a lot longer and disrupting. You're disrupting 3 golf courses. So it's a huge issue. And I'd also give a shout to the Renaissance guys and this European Tour for what they've done with Genesis, because the difference now in the Scottish Open with being a co-sanctioned event and FedEx points is going to be absolutely huge. I mean, it's Rolex Series event. It's fantastic for Scotland, event. Wherever it is. Yeah.
Massive event, because you're going to have everything they want. So you're going to have it's attractive for American players. It's attractive for European players. It's a week before the Open.
Well, I think the European guys who can't play in the Scottish Open who'd normally play are allowed to go play in America. So it's a great chance for them to get a taste of that tour as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground there, which is good, lads. And very enjoyable. And just to say, if you want to check us out, it's www.scotlandwheregolfbegan.com. We're on social @wheregolfbegan, and you can email us at info@scotlandwheregolfbegan.com. Cheers.